Most people probably know this show as that one kids cartoon that showed boobs one time, but how many of y'all know it had more than one season? The fact each season had a different title probably didn't help, but then they changed their mind, and have named the most recent one the same as the first to be less confusing. Fun fact, seasons 5 and 6 were actually both season 5, and season 6/7 is technically a separate spin-off. I like this show, by the way. Basically, it's a children's version of Drawn Together, a cartoon parody of Survivor, if you know what that is. Looking back as an adult, it's a solid teenager-oriented cartoon show and an alright parody of 2000s reality TV. Something in particular I've come to like, though, is the chill, almost grounded vibe of the first season.
What's up, man? It's an honor to meet you, man.
Welcome to the island, man.
Thanks, man.
They say man one more time, I'm gonna puke.
I feel like there was this balance between relatively realistic events and dialogue versus cartoon wackiness, and the particular writing style meant to emulate 2000s teenager lingo.
Oh man, that white girl can scream.
Of course, the characters reflected this, being that they were literally walking stereotypes. Despite how cemented in its time it was, I think if you really want to bring the show back after so long, there is potential. Theoretically, a clever writer could use it to parody current trends. Even with the general trend towards not goodness the show suffered by the 5th season, and even though there's probably not much reason to bring it back, you can, and you can do something interesting with it if you're creative enough. I assumed for a while this show had probably run its course already. The last traditional seasons were ungodly abominations. Like, holy shit. I was surprised at how horrid All-Stars and Pac-2 were upon rewatching, and I was expecting them to be bad. And yeah, Redonkulous Race was relatively a step up, but for all I knew that could have just been a fluke. I generally don't expect anything good out of dead series or franchises that are being dug back up for nostalgia baiting. All too often are they just okay at best, and usually utter travesties. But despite seemingly being dead for a while there, they announced a new season sometime around the turn of the decade, to be aired on some stupid streaming platform or something. It kinda piqued my interest. I've been in the mood ever since they did Total Drama in real life. They're calling this a reboot, because of course they are, but the show treats itself like a sequel, acknowledging the time passed in universe.
It's been 15 years since our show first aired.
People watching this as their introduction to the series will know there were previous seasons, but will be extraordinarily confused when trying to look it up. A TD revival was announced sometime in 2021 or so, I think, with this surreal promo image. They used silhouettes of old characters, giving the impression they'd be returning. I'm glad they didn't, of course, but I don't know why they put them there. And Chef is dripless here. Also, other leaked promotional media said there to be disaster and horror movie inspired challenges. I don't know where the fuck those were. Then it took 2 or so years until early 2023 for re-uploads of the trailer on YouTube to drop. Not even via their supposedly official YouTube channel, where they only ever post baby content apparently, despite their channel header being this. How is it that they've been posting clips from the same damn show every week for years? I wonder if you can reconstruct entire episodes from the officially posted clips at this point. It looked fine, I guess. I don't know. I was more interested just by the fact that it was happening at all, especially since Tom McGillis had pretty confidently stated that there wouldn't be any more, and it had been 5 years since the last entry in an at one point basically yearly series. So anyway, after a couple years, this reboot was finally released on the Internet Archive. It wasn't officially released in English. People had to take the English dub of the Italian version to even pirate it. And pirating it was the only way for anyone in North America, i.e. the main demographic, to even watch the thing. Seriously, I thought this was gonna be on HBO Max. That's what the fan wiki told me. But not only was it not, I don't even think it's fully out yet internationally. For months, it was only in Italy for some reason. I guess they're huge Total Drama fans over there. At this point, I'm too stupid to decipher what exactly has/hasn't aired yet and where. I think most of season 1 has just now aired in North America, but who the fuck knows? I give up. Point is, this thing's release has been very belated, poorly communicated, and confusing. Honestly, you'd think the new age of streaming would make things less convoluted to make shows and movies as accessible as possible. Few times in my life have I been this bewildered about something that should be so simple. Not a good start to this attempted reboot. Through no fault of its its own too. Kinda depressing. Okay, on to the actual show now. This show has been noticeably struggling with character designs ever since they dropped the main cast, and the stereotypes and personalities started getting very weird and specific. But we all thought, maybe after so long, with a whole new generation of annoying little shits having freshly popped out of their mother's wombs, there could be a whole treasure trove of new Zoomer stereotypes to draw from. I can't even begin to guess what any of these freaks' personalities would be. From just a glance at the original characters, you can pretty much tell what their personalities are supposed to be. Most of these guys lack that obvious aesthetic. They just look like generic people. The only immediate standouts to me were this Asian chick and this Harley Quinn looking ass over here, especially since none of them had any unique expressions or poses either. They're all just kinda sitting there, except for maybe goth chick number 3. Oh sorry, her name is Scary Girl. Oh god, don't tell me that's actually her name. Who are these characters, and what are the new stereotypes? Anxiety, relatable. Sodomy, relatable. Justin 2, based, asterisk. Suicidal, homicidal, relatable. Eva 2, oh I forgot about you. Noah wannabe, oh I forgot about you. Closeted gay, relatable. Oh wait no, cut that part out. Along with, who cares, fuck off, and the only good character, this psychopathic influencer, who is just an asshole to everyone. Okay, seriously, who are these people? Priya's got main character energy, because she's the main character, not because she has the energy. She's got a lot of screen time and she's relatively normal, so you can tell she'll be in the show a lot. Her thing is that she was groomed her whole life. She was groomed her whole life to be a total drama contestant, which just barely checks out timeline-wise. Her parents must have been religiously extremist total drama fans since the very first second of the first episode. You'd think she'd be a hard ass if anything, but nah. She's just very normal and nice, and I fucking hate that about her. If any of these little shits deserves the label of not interesting, it's Millie. Her personality is... she's there. She nearly wins the game by simply not being notable enough to be on the chopping block, which in itself is an idea, but if only the only thing to her wasn't that she just writes dirt on the other contestants. Not to use strategically, that would be interesting. She's just gonna publish a book about it, I guess. What even is that as a character trait? She's honestly my personal least favorite of this new cast. Sure, there's technically more hateable characters, but not for me. Rip-er is the fart joke character. Fart jokes personified, manifested in the flesh as both man and fart joke. Scary Girl's thing is that she's actually crazy, to the point of homicidity, so she's just my type. Z is disabled, in the head. Basically an aloof implied stoner who accidentally stumbles his way into the late game. He's just vibin'. Julia is a narcissistic influencer turned predator. As in, she's mean. Consequently, she's my actual favorite character. What can I say? I'm stupid. One of the more accurate portrayals of influencers in media. Bowie is gay, and he fucks dudes. Despite being the ugliest, he was by no means the most contemptible of the lot, being the foremost strategist of the season. He's kind of the straight man of the cast, being one of the only socially and intellectually intelligent, outside of my favorite character. Why didn't I like him then? I don't know. MK's meme is stealing. Her only unique character trait is that she takes other people's stuff, and you better believe it didn't affect the challenges at all. And it's not unique either, since Scott already did it. I found her very lame at first. Axel is a physically oriented hard ass with a survivalist obsession. I don't know why they felt the need to make a Sean and Eva in the same person. She even name drops zombies in particular, just to make her less unique. Emma's personality is hating Chase. Her entire character revolves around the guy she hates, women. Chase is your typical chronically online YouTube brain-rotted zoomer. He's basically self-absorbed to the point of cartoonish delusion. He has even less of a character than Emma, though honestly, I almost enjoy his unapologetic terribleness. It's more entertaining than just being angry all the time. Now Damien. The fan wiki calls him a reactionary. Okay, based. The idea of a character not knowing anything about the show and being a total fish out of water can be cool.
He's never seen the show. Oh, that poor, poor sweet child.
It works great as a surrogate for those who haven't seen the show before, which I'm sure they're hoping for. But in practice, it mostly means he's relegated to goofy reactions and whining about wanting to be voted off, which gets old. Wayne and Raj are one character in two for the most part. They're only here for racial representation for sports people, meaning that they're the obligatory dumb hockey jocks. And that's their character, the singular character between both of them. Nichelle. Like Michelle, but with an N for some strange reason. Basically, her whole thing is she's some Hollywood actress. I haven't found her on the flight logs yet, but you can do your research yourself. Caleb is literally a man. I won't talk about him at all for the first season, so you don't have to remember him. Chris McLean, the owner of an island full of miners. He was one of the most flanderized characters, degenerating as the series went on and absolutely victimized by season 5's malicious writing. He went from an unorthodox camp counselor to an actual homicidal psychopath.
Huh, a couple of keeners. I'm sure a little pain and starvation will fix that.
Here, he's toned down from season 5 levels, but still retains that sociopathy.
I like to kick people while they're down.
I guess that's just what washed up celebritydom does to a person. Makes them satanic. Don't think I won't complain about Chef. Chef is not Chef no more, I think. He might be, though we seldom see him actually chefing. Back in my day, when I was like 7, he was a badass, evil ex-army general who was also a glorified lunch lady. Now he's been reduced to a redundant narrator, and his new drip looks wrong. But more importantly than all of this, how does the daycare universe fit in? This chef is clearly far more like that chef than OG Chef. He's wearing the same clothes, which is an obvious clue to the hidden baby lore. Did he accidentally fall out of that universe into this one? Is this another world line entirely that's the same as the original show except for this one change? Unless of course we employ Awesome's razor and assume the simplest solution, which would be the daycare is either its own pocket dimension stuck in a time loop, or he goes back in time to when the characters all knew each other in kindergarten, before growing up and meeting each other for the first time on TDI. So it's obviously an alternate baby timeline. Maybe this is the many babies' interpretation of quantum mechanics. I'll be thinking more about this for the next few months. I'll get back to you on my findings. Naturally, my analness will be based on the first original season as the main standard, so if any of the stupid crap I happen to compliment looks to you like just stupid crap, that's why. Because ultimately, yeah, this show is kinda stupid, but I liked it as a kid, so here I am. I'm gonna act as if you haven't seen the show, because if you're American, or just not autistic, you still haven't. So I'll run through the bullet points I find most integral to understanding what's going on. So if you haven't seen it, you're at the mercy of what I find mildly interesting and how my addled mind interprets things. This is gonna be obnoxiously long, fuck me. A Tutto reality, El Isola. The iconic theme song has been replaced with an updated rendition.
Hey, what's up? I'm here to slay.
I'll accept it over gutting the original like season 5 did. It's not the worst thing ever. It's not as bad as 9/11, but it's just not as good. Seriously, how could you ever think this is better than this? By the way, why is the new logo just a whitewashed version of the old one? The original was black too. They probably should have made it more obviously different, as to not confuse with the original. Weird also, for a modern logo, they unsimplified it.
Now let's meet the victims. I mean campers.
So with this intro sequence, they sort of combined the old audition tapes this show used to do with the original not so happy campers method of introducing the characters. Didn't take a whole episode this time.
That move was so cold you could hang ball caps on my nipples.
Hey, there's a little bit of edginess there. Not something you really see in these newer seasons. Now, even if you've never watched the show before, you can tell a huge difference between the new and old version of Chris McLean. What? You can't? What, are you fucking stupid? His voice is obviously different.
Yo, we're coming at you live from Camp
Just a reboot. It's a reboot to the...
I get sometimes shit happens and you have to replace talent. And as far as that goes, this is a tolerable substitute, but it's objectively inferior to Christian Potenza's iconic original voice. It's almost hard for me to see him as the same character in a way.
And be flown home by the drone of despair.
Each season, with often changing themes, developed a tradition of using different methods of executing people. The original was just a boat, then a limo, then being kicked out of a fucking plane, then a catapult, then oh boy, and then a cannon. They seemed to keep trying to one-up themselves, and as a result, became stupid. So I'm glad they scaled it back down a notch, and are using a relatively on-theme drone this time, which is kind of funny.
Nobody messes with an alfalfa male.
Ripper has a wannabe Andy Taint meme going on in these first couple episodes, which is dropped for the rest of the reboot. So I guess they forgot about it, or chickened out on going any further with that, or just really thought they should emphasize the fart fetish more. More on that later. Either way, I don't know what the point of it was in the first place then.
Hey campers, challenge time!
When this show is at its best, the challenges will often help to reveal more about the characters. There is one in the OG literally all about the characters' individual fears, and one of the best episodes, the dodgeball one, each of their pros and cons are on display. As the show degenerated, so too did the challenges for the most part. In this first challenge, 2 players are tied together and also blindfolded, directed by teammates atop a hill, navigating an obby course to acquire a fish bucket, then put that shit on a pulley system to 2 other teammates. Why? Now, this might not sound like the worstest thing ever. It might even remind you of the typical Survivor challenge, if cartoonified. The good Turtle Drama challenges weren't just slightly wackier Survivor challenges, but something more specific on the season's particular theme. Island had the aforementioned dodgeball, camping trips, a stay-awake-a-thon, deer hunting, summer campy stuff. Action had hide and seek with Godzilla, surviving a disaster movie, reenacting a dramatic scene, Hollywood stuff. Although they forgot the pedophile world tour got navigating the temples and deserts of Egypt, raiding Area 51, and a fashion competition in Paris. World tour stuff, you get it. These new seasons don't have a particular theme, other than some zoomerisms here and there. Don't know what I was expecting, but I gotta believe these could have been better. Next episode. The funny part about Chase and Emma is that Chase almost literally killed her, and that's apparently why she's all bitchy and whining about him. Jeez. Anyway, we see Bowie as a strategist earlier on, as he be-girlfriends Emma as an alliance because he thinks she's gonna be good at the game or something. Axel's only notable contribution to season 1 was this joke.
These are...
Dead?
Yes, I meant before that?
Alive?
And half of this scene's funniness was because of Scary.
Blood.
You're not strange at all.
Whenever they spend a full few seconds to show the others' reactions to Scary being weird, it kinda ruins it. This challenge is slightly less weird. A cannonball fight with cabbages. I said slightly. After some shits and giggles happen, Wayne devises a not bad plan of taking out the opposing team's players so there's no offense, then sinking the ship. Scary also devises a great plan to ram the fucking ship into the other fucking ship.
What do we do now?
Actually not a terrible last-ditch effort idea. Now, Scary was shown to excel at dodging, only for her to notice a cabbage bolt and not dodge it. Would have made sense if she just didn't notice it. Where did Emma go, by the way?
Is it that my fist fits perfectly into your face?
It does not. Anyway, Axel gets axed. She brought no value to this season, so that's cool. Or next season for that matter. Ep 3. A player from each team is locked in a suicide pod, while the others do another obby to get numbers from a code to release the captives. This one's kinda twisted. Of course, it becomes a tight race at one point, until Scary is activated. All of this setup of her being OP at challenges, only for her to only last 4 episodes. For some reason, everyone is shocked when they realize an actress is not actually the character they're playing.
All the cool stuff I do on screen is actually being done by a 46-year-old stuntman in a braided wig named Jerry.
I feel like at this point in this generation, people are familiar with the concept of actors not being who they play.
This is so cringe.
And obviously she's the one going home. They didn't really take advantage of the amazing opportunity for an interesting/entertaining dynamic between the traditionally famous Nichelle and the internet famous Julia. Those two lifestyles on the surface seem similar, but are pretty different experiences. Like how internet fame is largely self-made, but for relatively simple content, whereas a Hollywood actress would have networked her way in and lacks control in the complex movie industry machine. A conversation between these two characters could be really interesting, but the closest thing to that we get is literally just this.
Of course he puts the two famous people together.
I'm famous.
I have no idea who she is.
Episode 4 is when Priya and Millie's weird ship begins. They become friends and allies because, I don't know, they're nice. This one's Capture the Flag. It's kinda simple as that. I like it. I also like how Lauren tries to kill everyone.
Hey, Scary! I think she's gone. You may as well go after someone else.
It's not even halfway through the episode, and this character is already being focused on much more than usual, so you know who's going home. The second most notable event is Ripper using Priya as a human shield. Pretty solid play actually, considering it would have won it for them, had Scary not had a convenient autism moment to use it as an excuse to vote her off. The show does that a lot, where at the tail end of an episode, a character does something stupid in full sight of their team, so the writers can just get rid of them already. Never thought I'd stoop to this, but I rooted for the neurodivergent e-girl. She was easily the most interesting character for a good first third of the show. Naturally, I cried myself to sleep when they apparently couldn't think of what to do with her after the 4th episode.
I didn't win, but I met a lot of people and I know their names. Which is good if you ever need an organ.
I understand you can probably only stretch out the gag for so long, but she doesn't have to just be a gag. I'm kind of sick of characters just being gags. I like the idea of a wild card like her, whereas everyone else seemed so normal to begin with, and so much of the focus seems to be on challenges and strategies. She could be a useful and interesting contrast to that, being completely unpredictable. She could be a wrench thrown into the other characters' strategying. Even if she is one-dimensional, again, that could be used as a contrast to the others. The best criticism of Scary Girl is that a lot of her creepiness is tryhard. It is, but it doesn't have to be. It has to be possible for them to do something more interesting than this, right? I don't want to talk about this episode, man. If you know, you know. If you don't know, then good for fucking you. I didn't ask.
Are you flirting with me about my farts?
Yes!
I was eating. I'll skip to the only important part. Damien pulls a Dave and somehow makes badges with a cross on his face. It's honestly strange to me how this is exactly what Dave did, only for him to be kicked out as soon as he gets an inch of development and no longer wants to be. As if that's not painfully predictable. And it's not even justified, since it was right after an explicitly heroic moment that all of his teammates bore witness to. And they were already leaning towards voting Ripper, in spite of Damien's constant pestering to vote himself off.
Can I count on you?
Everyone wants Ripper gone.
And also, he had plenty of time to tell them he had a change of heart. The thing about characters with missed potential in total drama is that there's inevitably going to be some, due to the restriction of eliminating someone approximately every episode. But since this show is not real, as far as we know, and is, in fact, written by people all in advance, I find it hard to see how they couldn't have done more with the characters before getting booted. For Damien and Scary Girl in particular, their eliminations came immediately after their only time in the spotlight. Episode 6 is when Julia goes mask off mode and just becomes an asshole to everyone. My queen. She comes in and immediately assaults the gay man. Up until now, she was your typical influencer, pretending not to be a sociopath. After not being interested in any of the characters, not being entertained by the challenges, and the couple characters I did like got shafted as soon as they got interesting, Evil Julia was the saving grace for me. She's the only other one aside from Bowie who's smart enough to win challenges and willing enough to take charge. It's cathartic since it took this long to get a main villain like this, and it's just fun to see her be mean.
Hey! Hey!
The peeps trebuchet themselves into targets for different points. This is another pretty simple one. Can I find something to complain about? Only that Julia didn't win, though this whole moment was pretty funny.
4 fingers.
Because cartoon characters usually don't have a full set of fingers, you know? Luckily, Julia was nice enough to the writing room gods that they bestowed upon her knowledge of MK's tomfoolery.
Butt knuckle is my word, and I've only ever said it in here. MK's been watching our confessionals.
And she reenacts the scene from Revenge of the Island where Scott did the exact same thing. So that was all pretty BS, but I'm okay with it because it means Julia is still in the show. And MK dies. Moving on. Raj and Bowie did it last episode. Like, they literally had sex right there in the middle of this cartoon show. It was crazy. And Wayne is a total perv. Like you. So much of this episode is him trying to get Raj to tell him about it.
I'm gay!
It's merge time, apparently. It doesn't super matter, other than I guess it's free reign for them to play each other now. Julia makes an alliance with Chase to protect him from elimination. Meanwhile, she also makes alliances with everyone else to get him voted out. The challenge is ostriches. I don't think I have to elaborate. Z tries to have sex with one. There's a lot of sex in this show. Chase won Emma back by accident. Women. Wayne and Raj died, so there's no elimination. Why does Bowie sleep in the girls' cabin? After the fart episode, we get the obligatory vomit episode, but gay. It's another brunch of disgustingness, but gay. Chris enjoys it a little too much. And by the end of it, Chris force feeds two 16-year-olds a live fucking 20-foot tapeworm. Holy shit. That got good. But only that part was any interesting to me. I skipped through most of it on my rewatch, so I missed why Emma hates Chase again, but I don't think it matters. Ripper gets booted, by the way. At first, he had moments of being toxically masculine, as well as having moments of trying to take charge, that made me want to root for him, but that's just not possible. At least you can mistake him for genuinely attempting to win challenges in the first season, whereas he's actually useless in the next one. One of, if not the worst of the new characters. The 9th ep is basically just a race with some obstacles, and a volcano that is also a giant beehive, which I guess counts as creative.
And since I will not work with Bowie.
Why not, Julia? There are two 3-man groups going on right now. Z joins the alliance with Julia. Z joins the alliance with Bowie. You might guess where this is going. All of them gang up to kill Z. It's a pretty satisfying end to his run, honestly. In a show that's usually such a mixed bag in that regard, he was in it exactly as long as he needed to be. And it makes sense that as soon as shit gets real, and everyone is getting serious about the game, his neurodivergencies start getting discriminated against. He was an example of a good gag character, and being one-dimensional works for him. His disconnection from the game aspect of this game show, and just kinda acting chill all the time, is reasonably endearing, and he has some actually chuckle-worthy moments. Not quite the depravity of Ripper's level of humor, nor does he emanate the vibes of wasted potential. I like how they found a natural way to utilize the big hill in this season. The 10th episode is the sleep-off again, but this time while standing on extreme poles above crazy water, while being radically malnourished. Chris employs a different strategy to fuck with them. He starves them so he can tempt them with food, old cartoon style. At one point, he even bribes them with thousands of dollars. Up to 10,000.
$10,000 for any of you to step off your pole.
If you're not targeted for elimination, that's an easy chance to take, actually. Also, are they getting down from the poles each time to do these confessionals, only to say a couple things as if they're still in the moment? A pet peeve of mine in this reboot is how confessionals are just used as an in-the-moment internal monologue, as opposed to something they recorded after the fact in-universe.
$1 million? I'm coming for you!
Damien, you've been voted off.
Wait, what?
That didn't really happen in the first one.
I was pretty darn nervous. See, the thing is, I'm not that strong a swimmer.
In fact, they had this great gag where Cody was normal in the present challenge, but completely fucked up in the confessional, purposefully playing on the fact that this was recorded later. But there's no consideration for that anymore. Kinda dumb, honestly, considering it's mostly just used for lame jokes anyway. Bowie conspiracizes to give up the challenge to grab a phone that could theoretically have dirt on Julia. Not like people already hate her, and the only reason she's not eliminated is because she keeps winning immunity, and that phone could easily be killed on account of being in a lake for who knows how long. Also, what phone lasts hours on end at 12% under constant use? Priya goes schizo temporarily, and the thing is, she's supposed to be going crazy and hallucinating, but in universe, the cameras are clearly picking up on it, so it was real. This has some really encouraging implications for my GF. Too much of this episode is spent with Emma yelling at a brick wall named Chase, and Chase digging himself deeper, only for Emma to find some way to convince herself to like him again. In case you thought there was any other outcome, Chase is finally gone. Fuck off, both of you. How is Emma still on the show? Guess what most of Emma's dialogue is about?
Chase? What would Chase do? Chase? Can we talk about Chase? Chase?
This one is basically the same thing as the classic animal catching challenge, except you have to take extreme selfies with them, which is actually easier. And that does qualify as being Gen Z themed and thus having a unique theme from the other seasons, so there's something. Guess who wins immunity? Bet you can't. I'm not even going to tell you. Emma goes home, thank Jehovah. We're on 12 now, we're almost done, bear with me. I don't feel like explaining this. They go in the caves like they did a few times, I think, in Revenge and All Stars and even Pocket Sow. They're looking for coins, I think. Millie almost gets eaten by a fish. Julia gets eliminated. Fuck! If it's any consolation, they bring her back as a helper in the finale. It's not. Priya and Millie break up on account of Bowie's mischieving. The very last challenge is using a makeshift raft to cross a river of lava. Wooden rafts. With wooden paddles. And none of it ever burns, and no one ever gets hurt on account of the lava. Priya's raft only falls apart because Millie sabotaged it. So like, what's even the point of it being lava? It might as well be water.
Oh, no one fell in the lava!
Also, they miss a prime opportunity for a Revenge of the Sith reference. Millie gets radical character development here at the tail end of the season, when she unlocks the emotion of sadness and the ability of self-reflection. And to her credit, it was all about her valuing her friendship with Priya. For her, this is mammoth development, and I'm not making a joke about her obesity. I mean, she tries almost killing Priya to win her friendship back.
You were supposed to jump to my raft when yours fell apart. Then we could become besties again because I saved you.
But this is like an actual character thing, so you know, good for her. She doesn't win though, thank goodness. I was scared for a while there. Then they have to walk goats up a mountain, and then they have to milk them? What? Chef apparently kept suggesting weird things to put in the challenges, but that is never explained nor goes anywhere. And then they come all over the balls, Jesus.
Here they come!
Okay, this show is fucking losing it. And then, you guessed it, the winner is... Chase? Chase won? I don't know how did Chase won? Nah, I'm just kidding, it was Priya. Overall, this 13 episode stretch, or this season, or the first half of the 6th season, or whatever this thing identifies as, is pretty solid for total drama. Still doesn't hold a candle to the OG, and I think people exaggerate how good it is, but I would place it just above Redonkulous Race and just below the first 3 seasons, which ain't bad. Now I get to talk about the real issues that bother me. Why is the toilet paper always used up? And why is that the only difference here from the original show? Actually, they changed everything. Can you tell? They updated all the background graphics, like these flower patterns on the grass being inverted, or this barrel being a different color. This is probably only interesting to me, but they redrew all the backgrounds while maintaining nearly the exact same style. They didn't take the opportunity to make anything aesthetically different, just slight tweaks to the art style. It's a bit simpler. There's less fine texture, like on this grass, or the lack of gross grudginess on the cabins here. And this is after Paketao, which, for all its everything, had relatively creative and detailed backgrounds. I'm not exactly against this, especially since you can barely tell, but I just wonder why not go further and make significant changes in order to give these new seasons more of their own character. I feel like if they do anything more with this show, they're gonna have to get more creative than this, man, come on. Here's some neat pics I can shout out about the animation. Some pseudo 3D effects, depth of field, nothing crazy impressive, and there's not too much of it. It still looks as Total Drama Island as ever, but it's neat to see the animation improvement. I like the way challenges are handled a lot more in Season 2. They're a bit more creative to begin with, and there's often some interesting twist or surprise play that changes the stakes. Because they had to, they do a Squid Games. They perform cephalopod activities. Despite being a very out-of-season 2020 joke, I found myself instantly liking this challenge far more than most from last season. I've already whined enough about my cringecore waifu getting shafted so often, so I'll resist the urge to spurg out about her getting eliminated first.
This is what you get for trying to conform with societal norms.
What was even the point of her normal pills arc if it was only for one episode and for a couple of jokes? They keep referencing her after she's booted too, so it's almost like they know she's a fun character, but refuse to utilize her for some reason.
I miss that weirdo.
Literally the only reason I would want a third reboot season is to see if they could pull off what I wanted from this character.
I'm going to make them pay!
She doesn't make them pay. They should have booted Ripper out immediately, but I think they think he's funny, so I think they think he's the comedic relief, so they keep him in as long as possible, but they forgot to make him funny, and also do anything of value. In episode 2, the characters are shit. They jump through disgusting tubes that fling them into a hoop. The torture methods are getting very odd.
Chase is great at stuff like this.
Of course Emma's first thought is about Chase, though it apparently was a good enough idea to send him into autism mode enough to get him eliminated, and it's a good parody of obnoxious vloggers. I like how they find unique ways for each character to knock off of the hoop.
Well, you can certainly trust just me.
Foreshadowing. Millie actually exhibits some autonomy and also proves her sociopathy by immediately seizing the opportunity to take one for her team by taking Damien through a contraption that can only be appropriately described by comparison to a meat grinder. Everyone on her team is disgusted by this, which confuses me greatly. I don't see what's wrong. I like that her team got immunity, so she's forced to deal with the consequences for this for another episode, where a lot of the time characters will do something stupid as an excuse to eliminate them that episode. Still kind of feels that way, but at least it's put off a whole nother episode. In episode 3, the degenerates are covered with purple tree semen. I don't know why I say these things. They keep sticking to shit. But MK hates cum, and so she activates SV cheats to spawn ungoopers for her team. Raj and Wayne, treating sports religiously, regard cheating as heresy. There's two cool things happening here. First, MK and Julia's joint conniving to use their combined characteristics of underhandedness and sociopathy to advance in the game is a great arc. A huge hotfix for MK, and it's amazing Julia is still finding evil ways to impress me. Second, Bowie's cognitive dissonance between his natural tendency towards mischievousness and caring what Raj thinks. Being that this was his main thing last season, seeing a wrench thrown into that is nice.
I'm not making Raj choose between me and playing fair. We have a really good thing going.
Aw, Bowie, you're gonna make me puke.
By far the strongest theme throughout this season is the Caleb x Priya ship, which is bizarre how much time that of all things takes up. He's manipulating her, then he starts actually simping for this woman who reciprocates his feelings, disgusting fuck. Then she finds out he was manipulating her, but then it's all cool. Then Julia is manipulating him, then Priya is mad about him doing stuff with her, and then they go back and forth like that until the end where he's chill but kind of dense. And she's outwardly nice, but evidently unstable. Yeah, I don't fucking know, man. I don't hate this whole arc as much as some people do, but I can't say I was super interested. People argue it derailed her character, but I honestly don't know what else you'd do with her other than just eliminating her earlier. Of course I would have preferred that. I mean, she won last season.
Hey, no off days, huh?
Nope.
In Epi 4, it's a character trivia game, I guess like a deadly Kahoot. You'd think the answers would pertain to stuff we know about the characters from the 16 episodes so far, but it's all random stuff the audience probably couldn't predict.
Would you rather be A, hockey superstar Gord Lafleur, or B, the puck that scored the game-winning goal in the 1988 Cup Finals? B all day!
As such, I think Emma was sorta cheated. Her guesses made total sense, but this is a cartoon show written by writers who want to vote her off this episode. Her only real flaw was her sudden overconfidence bestowed upon her also by the writers. Outside of that, MK does something really smart here that I like.
I'll sneak off to the production trailer and get the answers. Just listen to how many times I shout it. Odd number of shouts means the answer is A, even number means B.
That's brilliant.
Because of that, the other team loses and Emma goes home. Like I said, kinda stinks though, as I was just warming up to her after finding her absolutely dreadful the first time around, and I think the reason she got voted was bullshit, but whatever. Axel commits an unspeakable abomination by hooking up with Ripper. The guys, everyone, is tasked with navigating an iceberg. Those things on YouTube thumbnails. Z has a hard time restraining himself from Touretting out Priya's crush on Caleb, so he keeps his mouth busy with soda. To skip to the point, the dude ends up pissing so hard he fucks his team over. I just wanted to make sure everyone knows this happens. The LGTVs have a domestic about the cheating again, and Bowie decides to mutiny against Julia. Nichelle saves Z from being the obvious choice for elimination through this random last-minute inserted excuse for her to quit. Whatever, I didn't like her anyway. In episode 6, Chris inevitably finds out about MK's fucking around, so she gets discriminated against the whole episode. Pretty cathartic, even though I like her cheating arc. The challenges in this episode are different wrong versions of jousting. Not the best stuff in the series, but they can't all be more than okay at best. Z becomes the X in Caleb x Priya, because he gets in the middle of it.
I thought you liked her.
Nah,
Did he say anything about me? Don't answer that!
Basically, this goofy little plot point is fine at first, but gets way stretched out, like this whole arc in general. I forgot that Caleb was still not actually into her up until literally the end of this episode. 6 episodes it takes for that development to happen. Inconveniently, right after Z finds out he was manipulating her, of course. Oh no, drama. I just don't know why they made this a full season arc. I think that's the only real problem I have with it, other than maybe being not all that interesting to begin with. It takes up too much time, despite not being all that deep, nor being super entertaining. In this one, it's like that old cake meme, where everything is cake, except it's chef. They're tasked to make Chris cakes. Is it just me, or is Owen's voice noticeably not the same?
Hey everyone, check this out.
Hi everyone.
You can hear the 2 decades past in his voice. I don't want to talk about this way outdated meme they decided to dig up from its deep, deep, deep grave. It offends me.
This is
So cringe.
Ripper and Axel continue to be their normal selves as the worst thing in the season.
I used the same technique to fix my brother's posture.
What the fuck is that supposed to mean? Now, there's some unspeakable things Priya felt the need to do in order to bake a pretty cake, and I'm not gonna speak of it for the sake of those eating at home, but it has something to do with using Ripper's armpit grease as a substitute for baking soda. No idea why Priya volunteered at the earliest convenience this information, giving herself an L and handing the win over to Julia. She did not have to say anything. Anyway, Axel dies and Ripper kills himself over it. Theoretically, I can hypothesize a universe where this was used to change Ripper to be more mature and Axel to be more relaxed. But that would mean less funny parts for babies. It was kinda funny at first, but their whole gimmick was entirely just them doing a Jeff and Bridget from action, arguably the worst part of the season.
He did the same joke about 3 times already. I don't think it's funny anymore.
Ultimately amounting to a pretty lame character in Axel.
It's time for a change.
They have to drag the big ol' balls up a mountain. Then that somehow transitions to human pinball. I don't know what the point of the coins was, but the pinball stuff is interesting. This ep also got its nostalgia bait references. I'm not better than it, I enjoyed them. Foreshadowing. While Z is still being what Tyler was to Gwen and Duncan, Julia decides to become Alejandro. She doesn't actually manage to get him to spit it out, but he eventually does on his own, finally climaxing this 3-episode tension. Z kept saying shit about the other contestants too, so he gets booted. I don't think that makes nearly as much sense realistically if the team really found what Caleb did all that bad, that they would vote out Z instead. But they probably knew that it would be more dramatically interesting to keep him in the show.
Good on Z for dishing on Caleb. Kinda feel bad for voting him off the island.
Of course, for the next few episodes, we have to deal with this cliche thing where the mistake or misunderstanding can't be cleared up because of some inability to communicate each time. Yadi yadi.
One alliance to rule them all.
So
good on him, though, for being conscientious enough to not ally with the antagonist for once in this show, until he does. The dudes have to find the biggest object they can. Predictably, Caleb is just lucky enough to find and carry the biggest object. Unpredictably, that's actually a detriment. Damn it, I was gonna criticize it. They have to break apart and fit their objects through a tiny hole. Really awkward for Damien. I appreciate how Wayne is incapable of destroying the iconic and immortal confessional outhouse. He's apparently incapable of penetrating its plot armor. MK can't win, she eated it. It becomes a kinda tight race, of course, but Caleb somehow ultimately wins. It objectively still might be plot armor, but fuck if he didn't have to work for it. Ultimately, MK gets booted for trying to get Julia booted. Serves her right. I guess they realized there wasn't any reason to stretch out their deal any further. Makes perfect sense. Should have done that with the other couple. This chick is way better in season 2. She actually put her whole stealing gag to use to cheat during challenges, which made it so her snarky attitude actually had weight rather than just feeling like a lame Noah knockoff. Like, oftentimes her commentary is completely useless and redundant, but then she'll say great shit like this.
I gotta start over.
If I were you, I'd start over from birth.
She basically became a second Julia, which means she's perpetually in Julia's shadow, but that's still a huge upgrade from S1. I think the the only reason they drag out Caleb and Priya's drama is because they'd logically be too OP as a healthy team in the game. But that ends up meaning that every time a wedge is resolved, another one is inserted and they go through the same cycle again. Julia, despite everything she's done, somehow manages to convince both of them to take her advice and stop talking to each other. Don't know why the fuck anyone would trust Julia for any reason at this point, but I guess you could ask the same thing about a lot of the villains in this show. Memory game time. I have questions about the logistics and mechanics of these holes in the ground containing so many different crazy contraptions. The writers are kinda sadistic to keep fucking with Damien's Scary Girl trauma. Also, I like how Chris likes Scary Girl.
Aw, Scary Girl loved that skull!
Hold up, Julia was manipulating Caleb and Priya? No way! So yeah, they finally wake up and make up. Then Priya's new strategy becomes fucking murdering Julia. And in their cartoon combat dust ball, Priya oopsies so hard she gave Julia the W. Again. Then in a stunning twist, Julia shares her immunity with Caleb and acts like they're allies, making Priya all mad at him again, and so we're back to that square. Julia is right about this being better than Bowie's play on Millie in season 1 though. And so, since we need this Priya x Caleb / Priya v Caleb thing to go on longer, don't you want this to go on longer? Damien is the one going out, and because the writing room gods wanted that so badly, they manifested Damien's rightfully owned immunity idol into Julia's hands. Off screen. The best way to write an important event. What was the point of Damien ever getting it then? Was that meant to be another twist? Or did they change their minds when writing it? I was hoping Damien would have an arc where he went from being scared of everything to getting better and becoming a formidable player, because that's really the only way to go with him, other than just always booting him early after his shtick wears off. But it felt like he kinda just hung around this season. He wasn't particularly skilled at anything, nor did we see him learn and grow. He was just kind of a normal guy who was just kind of there. And so, Damien gets ripped off both seasons. I probably would have eliminated Priya at this point. I wouldn't have done that sudden twist thing with Julia, and just put this arc to rest already, but bah. One thing I will compliment about Pre-Leb is a kind of psycho it brings out of Priya eventually. A more entertaining version of her than the rest of the series. By the way, are these random cameos strange to anyone else? There's only been 2 in the latter half of the 2nd season without any warning, while in Revenge of the Island, for example, that was a part of the formula of the entire season. I appreciate them, I just wonder why it's so random. The first challenge is literally a group of rabid police dogs hunting the contestants down to kill them. What the fuck? Let me guess, the little one is gonna be the most deadly. I would have never expected that. Also, Priya stands there and watches, not necessarily because she's mad at him, but because she's entertained by it.
I really wanted to see what that little monster could do.
See what I mean? She becomes kinda psychotic.
Sometimes at school I get so bored I actually listen.
That's one of their better lines. Raj does something actually legitimately smart by taking off his clothes, which are incidentally the things that dogs are smelling him by. And Julia similarly masks her scent by hiding in the trash. It stopped working though because Julia refused to stay in the trash for some reason, but she managed to literally scrape by the skin of her fake nails to win immunity. I honestly love the willpower of this girl. Jewel gave Priya an ultimatum to vote with her and Caleb to eliminate Raj, or let Caleb go home as Raj and Wayne have already decided to vote for him. That wouldn't quite work how she put it, since if Priya voted for Wayne, it'd be a tie vote, and I wonder what would have happened then. But whatever, Raj goes home, so be it.
Remember how Julia saved me from elimination when she won double immunity in that memory game? In return, I agreed to vote for whoever she told me to. Ow! Priya, why are you crushing my hand?
Out of love!
Is it exhausting yet how bipolar their relationship is? One minute it's lovey-dovey and the next it's this. And the current wedge between them is still this same deal that Caleb made with Julia a few episodes back. And Priya acts surprised every time it's brought up, as if she hasn't heard of it before. Last episode she even characterizes it like he made another deal with Julia, which is not true. It's still the same one that she already knew about. And as long as Caleb explains to Priya that part of the deal was to not vote her out,
I made Julia promise we'd never vote off Priya.
I hardly see why Priya can't just get over it. I kinda get it, but I kinda don't. We take a break from that mess for one of the funnier moments of the reboot. Wayne having a little montage of being sad about Raj not being there.
I was not prepared for losing you.
This is the finale eve, so stakes are pretty high. Just like the cranes that are hooked up to the harnesses on each contestant. They have to hook each other to yoink one another into a pit of their apparent personal worst fears.
How do you even know what our deepest fears are?
You filled them in on the application when you signed up?
I wish he said something to the effect of, you publish them on social media, but whatever. Pretty weird challenge, I'm unsure of how to comment on it. Caleb is an autistic man, so when Priya told him to backstab Julia while still lying to Julia to keep her trust, he interpreted that to mean once Julia asks him to do something, he should do it to keep her trust. So he does this fucking shit.
Sorry, new plan.
Lol.
Do girlfriends hold grudges?
Funniest line in the show. Pretty adorable that Wayne's worst fear is Raj playing on another team. Then he comes to terms with it and befriends the bear. Then it's replaced by his team mascot. Then he befriends the intern in the mascot. Good shit. Faced with a choice of staying loyal to woman A or woman B,
What's it gonna be, Caleb?
Yeah, what's it gonna be?
dude said fuck them both. Pretty legitimately actually based. Actually the best possible scenario. At the end of this whole back and forth drama between these two, that was pretty cathartic. Anyway, the moment I've all been waiting for. Priya goes goodbye. Fuck off. Why were you in so much of the show? Nothing against her seriously. I just don't think she deserves this much screen time. It's kind of annoying she takes up so much time in both seasons with such a bland personality. She's kinda hard to root for most of the show. I only did at the season 1 finale because I didn't like any of the others anymore. Episode 13, Sore Loser. Shut up. This is the finalists. A bit of an odd one, mostly on account of Wayne.
The winner gets $1 million? I totally forgot about that!
And Caleb was definitely a character of the season. He was constantly attached to Priya, only seeing glimpses of his abilities and value as an individual. As it was, I don't feel him being here was totally deserved. But Wayne is also here, so it's not like that matters. I like Wayne being here though, because it's funny. But if it was up to me, Julia would totally win. But nothing is up to me, not even my own life. Also seriously, what's with the fecal funny in this show? It wasn't enough to have explicit potty humor constantly, and a full character personification of exactly that, but they also have Julia use
Oh, farts.
as her go-to expletive. Priya and Caleb's thing ship has gone full toxic mode at this point. Definitely a more interesting side to her, but another reason to not totally like her. After everything, it's the only natural conclusion, but man, this ship needs to fucking stop. Obligatory, the eliminated chumps get to participate somehow, and this time they pick who they like most, like in a few of the other seasons.
You don't care if I win? You just want Julia to lose?
I'm sure Wayne's team is the same.
But it's like the one big object challenge where having more people is actually a detriment. So my queen Julia has the advantage. By the way, how big is that outhouse? Having more people becomes a good thing again, as the helpers can knock off the opponents of the tightrope they have to cross. Definitely doing better than last season's final challenge so far. No goats nor milk this time. Literally everyone shoots at Julia. Therefore she has to activate plot armor once again to literally jump across the fucking chasm. I'm not even complaining. She's been heathered now too. This part's pretty hilarious too. Lest you think these challenges won't get weird, now they have to do a Mario meme and wear an animal suit to fly to the finish. Not as cool as the lava pit, but not as weird as the goat part. Just as it's becoming a tight race between Caleb and Julia, Wayne really just said fuck y'all and... Chee! No, I'm just kidding. Wayne won, obviously. Kind of an Owen moment, I can vibe with it. Julia probably technically deserved it more, but who cares, it doesn't matter. Because more importantly than that, this is funny. Right now, I'll make the claim that I like season 2 more. It made something out of MK, it made me not hate Emma as much. Even though Nichelle still stunk, she wasn't as boring and useless. Damien had funny reactions without just whining all the time. Caleb is an actual character. Julia, Bowie, Wayne, and Raj maintained their qualities. The challenges were a bit more creative. The things that were worse were easily Axel and Ripper. Chase wasn't as entertaining. Priya's whole Caleb arc was overly stretched out and arguably derailed her character. And Scary getting shafted still aggravates me. It feels weird that these two seasons were supposedly written together, since some of the second season feels like a conscious improvement on the first. Not to exaggerate it though, it's got obligatory dumb stuff too. Scary getting booted so fast is probably proof they didn't account for audience reactions between seasons, but it does feel strange how disconnected that arcs are between seasons. They didn't take the opportunity to have some sort of arc across both seasons or something like that. Usually a character is good in one, but not the other, with exactly Julia as the exception. If you wanted to, you could count in Shell's changes in response to the last season, but I wouldn't bother because it wasn't even good anyway. I already kind of spoiled my rating for this thing after the season 1 section, so oops. But both seasons are basically on the same level overall. I think this reboot as its own show by itself is pretty unremarkable, especially if this is a reboot, and if they want this to be the total drama island for the new generation. This makes for a rather unimpressive first impression of the series. I can't see these characters or events being as iconic and memorable to the current generation of teens/kids as the OGs were back then, if they're even targeting teens, which this show seemingly hasn't done since season 3. Despite it being not terrible, it still feels like it's written for babies. I can't imagine rewatching this thing by myself after this video, and I can't help but feel it doesn't fully utilize the Zoomer stereotype thing, which should be this cast's unique trait. As it is, there is a couple of influencers and a gay guy, and those aspects are only so relevant. The fact that Bowie is gay has quite a bit of focus, and Julia's influencerness influences how she attempts to behave on the show, only for that facade to crack, which is a neat little plotline, but that's about it. Despite it being alright, and getting a lot of praise on YouTube, I can't imagine this being too successful among today's kids. Especially since this show's fundamental parody aspects are so lost at this point, with how out of the popular zeitgeist Survivor is, and with how light this reboot is on parodying Zoomers. And the thing can't even release properly, so it's up in the air how many of those who would have been interested after hearing about this reboot from trailers or social media posts would even know or care if it ever does become widely accessible. Any hype for it will certainly be drained at that point, not the least of which because all the YouTubers who would have spread the word about it have already made their videos months ago, and it's been so damn long since the initial announcement too. There seems to be little to no effort to advertise the damn thing. The fans have done all the legwork in advertising this reboot, and even then, it probably won't even matter by the time it releases. So, basically, all that to say, 6 out of 10. By the way, does the like button do the rainbow thing when I say like? Do I have to say hit the like button? How many times can I make it happen by saying like button or click like? Can I say it multiple times? Like button, hit like. Is it doing anything? It'd be really awkward if it wasn't happening at all. Now please, whoever makes this show, don't start releasing another season while I'm in the middle of making this again. I swear I am mentally unstable and on the edge.
What you writing, nerd?
Ooh, and that's why I was hanging back.
Wait! Ow! Okay, we have... jump! Ow! Ow!
I can't move my legs.
Ow! Wait!
No survivors. I will never work with you. You are going to pay for this.
No! Please!
You are eliminated.
Not great, Millie.
Well, that doesn't make it right. This is just like when Ripper used Priya as a human shield. You, Millie, are a Ripper. It's Millie. I instantly regret...